Should we expect that a lot of that messaging is going to be playing on the division, the character of Donald Trump, potentially with references back to what went down in New York last night?
Yeah, Kailey, it's interesting to see as we're barreling toward actual election day, even though Americans have already started to take their ballots through early voting and mail-ins. We're seeing Harris pick up on a theme from Biden in 2022, talking about the importance of saving democracy. And this was a campaign line that was attacked in the days after the assassination attempt on Trump's life in July. And so we don't know how it's going to resonate. I wonder if Harris in her campaign have some kind of insight as to what the final closing arguments should include and what voters who are undecided want to hear.
It's interesting to even see the Trump campaign distance itself from some of the rhetoric on the stage last night. This was over a 5-hour affair. Donald Trump spoke long after comedians and others from Tucker Carlson to Don Jr. The campaign said this joke, referring to the reference of Puerto Rico as an island of garbage. This joke does not reflect the views of President Trump or the campaign, unquote. Not everybody bought that line because this was a campaign event. They paid $1 million to rent out Madison Square Garden. They hired all the talent, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, you know how this kind of thing works. Campaign spokespeople, campaign strategists, and staffers are all there. Their jobs are to find out what are people going to say when they take the stage on behalf of our campaign. So it's no surprise that people didn't really buy into it. Maybe it was one set of messages that is a little bit more bombastic was for one part of Trump's constituency, and the other part was to get some undecideds.
Well, and if Donald Trump has moved on after being in New York yesterday, he's in Georgia today. Are we going to see either of these candidates, aside from Kamala Harris in D.C. tomorrow, in anywhere other than a swing state between now and Election Day next Tuesday?
I know, and boy, they might regret that later, because the specter of 2016, when Hillary Clinton thought she was all sealed in Wisconsin and a couple of other states, may come back if there is a post-election mortem of the way this went.
All right, Bloomberg's Saleha and Mohsin, thank you so much. Now, another election-related story that we're watching, a fire in a ballot box in Washington state destroyed hundreds of ballots in a county where the congressional race could help determine control of the House.
Clark County officials are working through the damaged ballots. If you're with us on Bloomberg TV, you can see what we're talking about. As many voters as possible. And the county's auditor, I should say, is encouraging anyone who put their ballot in the impacted ballot box to contact the county or to go to the state's voter portal to track their ballot. Taking a turn now to the Middle East, a new push for peace following Israel's retaliatory strike against Iran over the weekend. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu now says he is open to a short truce with Hamas in exchange for hostages, as proposed over the weekend by Egypt. President Biden had this to say about it earlier today.
We need a ceasefire. We should end this war. It should end, it should end, it should end.
Prime Minister Netanyahu stressed that negotiation under fire is better than negotiation during ceasefire. What do you think about that?
I'll reserve that for my discussion with him.
For more, we turn now to Bloomberg's Nick Wadhams, who had a busy weekend tracking all of this. Nick, just to begin with the retaliation that we saw Friday into Saturday, calculated to not escalate the conflict, the declines that we saw in oil prices would codify that. Does that suggest the Biden administration did have some influence on the way this was conducted?
I mean, that's certainly what the administration is telling us, that they had worked for weeks, essentially, to shape the Israeli response to Iran, and they had really two big issues. One was no strikes on Iran's energy network that could affect the price of oil, and the other one was nuclear sites, because they just felt that that would be so escalatory, represent a step that would just embroil the region even deeper into conflict. And the result, as you saw with the oil market, was essentially a feeling that they had gotten that calibration. They had successfully made that argument with Prime Minister Netanyahu. The result was what you saw was a situation intended to send a very strong signal. So they attacked facilities that produce these ballistic missiles that were fired into Israel on October 1st, and then also air defenses. So a show of strength. Listen, we got your air defenses. We can basically rule your skies. Just try us again. So that's sort of where we've ended up.
Just to reiterate, the moves in oil today, pretty incredible. Brent down more than 5%. The single worst day since July of 2022. It was the biggest one-day drop in WTI since November of 2021, more than 6 percentage points. So the oil market seems to be thinking, all right, we're all looking good here. There also is the question, we heard President Biden speaking about it, of this ceasefire potential opportunity. Netanyahu signaling openness, we understand, to a short-term agreement. Is this actually close to being reality after months of back and forth, Nick?
I mean, we have been through this dance so many times before where we have a potential signal from Israel, what they're saying to the U.S. and allies that they may be willing to do this. But you fundamentally run up to an issue, which is that the Israeli government, Prime Minister Netanyahu, says we are not going to stop until Hamas is eradicated. And even after the death of Hamas leader Sinwar a week or so ago, he said, no, this marks the beginning of the end, but it is not the end. And they vow to keep on fighting. Hamas says they are unbowed. So you have a situation where Israel is saying, as long as Hamas is there, we're going to keep going. It's difficult to see how they would move beyond a temporary ceasefire to something more permanent, because that would then give Hamas the time to retrench and regain its strength, which is exactly the thing that Netanyahu doesn't want.